Welcome to Bon Vivant Chic, Life Well Lived, the podcast for anyone who wants to cut through today's noise and just listen for a few minutes to meaningful conversations on the human experience and the power of connectedness. I'm your host, Ernestine Morgan, an advocate for kindness with a passion for showcasing human interest stories that matter. Today, I'm delighted to sit down with Bridgette Bello. Bridgette has been involved in Tampa Bay's publishing scene for nearly 20 years and even longer in the state of Florida, right?
A little bit. We're just going to call it experience and leave it at that.
She led both the Tampa Bay Business Journal and then launched Tampa Bay Business and Wealth magazine. Today, she's moved on to new ventures. So let's get started.
I'm excited to have the conversation. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Thank you, Bridgette, for sitting down with me today. Can you please share a little about where you grew up and what life was like?
Oh, goodness. Yes, of course I can. I was born in Lubbock, Texas, which a lot of people didn't know what Lubbock, Texas was until Landman hit the airwaves.
Yes, one of my favorite shows.
Mine too. I'm from Midland, Odessa, which is almost adjacent. I only lived there until I was 3. I was born there. I was born in the middle of a tornado, which a lot of people think is funny. They're like, of course you were.
Wow.
My parents moved to Austin, and I grew up in Austin until I was 12 when my parents got divorced, and my mom moved me to what I affectionately refer to as Melbourne, Florida, and went to high school there, and then Gainesville for college, and then Jacksonville for 13 and a half years, and I've been in Tampa for about 18 and a half now.
Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up.
I was an only child. I have since found out, now 55 years old, that I am an only child with the most siblings. That's been an interesting experience. But I grew up as an only child and thought I was the only daughter and thought I was the center of my mom and dad's universe. And come to find out, I have 3 other sisters and a brother.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you find that out?
I met 2 of the sisters and a brother at my dad's funeral in 1985. And we found my mom's daughter in the very beginning of the pandemic in 2020. It's been a wild ride. They're all amazing. I am super blessed. It's been a really positive experience. I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder about growing up as an only child. A lot of people say, then why did you have an only? And that's its own whole story.
What was it like growing up in Melbourne?
Melbourne was a small town. Everybody knew everybody and everybody knew everything. We actually moved to my grandmother's house, and my grandma had gotten remarried after my grandfather died, and so she wasn't there. And some of the people in the neighborhood were the people that were in that neighborhood when my mother was growing up. That was an interesting experience. It was a small town. It was genuine. It was not plastic. We were not well-to-do. As a single mom, my mom had to go to work, and she ended up dating the boy next door, literally, which also was its own interesting experience. He's my stepdad and has been since 1988. He's actually been my dad longer than my dad was my dad. I'm close to my mom. My dad was murdered when I was 15.
Wow. I'm sorry. If you look back, do you have any fond memories as a child?
I guess. I don't know. When I think about that they were fond for me, I think there's something really weird about it. I was always included at the adult table. As an only child, my parents would take me to dinner with their friends. And I remember drive-through drink barns where you could get cocktails and drive down the road. I always say my dad loved me the best way he knew how. It wasn't necessarily the best way, but it was the best way he knew how. And so I remember a lot of tragedy, a lot of hard times. But there's things like my mom loves to tell the story. They owned a barbershop. Mm-hmm. I've been in business development my whole life. And she talks about when I was like 6 years old, that they had this big bucket of combs on the checkout desk. And that I was like, hey, Mom, can I take the big bucket of cones and walk around the office park and sell them? And she's like, go ahead. And that I came back with an empty bucket of combs. I had sold all of my first published piece. I was also around 6 or 7, and one of their clients owned a gutter company. And I wrote a story about being a raindrop in this gutter that he had built. And I was a TV commercial. So there are some positive things. I remember sitting in my parents' room and watching thunderstorms. We lived in the Texas Hill Country, and they had these big Florida window ceilings, and that being a family thing, and watching MASH. So if I dig really deep, I can come up with some. For the most part, no.
I'm sorry. Who had the biggest influence on you when you were young?
In a positive and a negative way, my mom and my dad. They were all I knew other than the kids at school. I got picked up from school every day and taken to their business. So I did get to see what it was like to run a business. They owned the barbershop. They They had a little room that was built for me that I would sit in and do my homework and pick up the bucket of combs and go sell them to the people in the office park. I got to see what entrepreneurship was like. I got to see what owning a business was like. I got to see a family-run business. There were lots of perspectives that were gained from that. They had a big influence on my life. My grandmother was always really hard on me, and I remember hiding in a closet because she wanted to make me go on a walk, and she couldn't believe that I was so incorrigible and such a tough kid and things I haven't thought about in a long time.
So you're a tough little kid, huh?
I was tough. I'm still tough. I was not a good kid. Strong woman. And some people appreciate that and some people don't. There's no doubt that what shapes us is who we don't want to be and who we do want to be and how we expect to get there. A big part of what I try to talk about, my mother was in a domestic violence relationship, and I ended up marrying basically the mirror image of my father, and history did repeat itself. And then my daughter ended up in a domestic violence relationship. But it wasn't because we weren't talking about it, and it wasn't because it was a choice. It wasn't a conscious decision. And I think the thing that doesn't get talked about as it relates to that particular topic, because our children learn what love is based on their parents. And so you have these signals in your brain of, oh, he must love me because that's what my dad did. That's how my mom and dad behaved. And you find yourself like, wow, how did this happen? How did I end up in this same exact situation? And it's because whatever's going on in your brain has signaled to you that's what love is. And so I wish that was talked about more. And that's one of the things that I've tried to do over my years of public speaking and doing things like this is just to say your kids are watching, whether or not they know it, they're processing what they're watching. I think the day that I finally decided that it was time to get out was the day that somebody said, you realize you're teaching your daughter what she should expect from her future husband. Oh God, I don't know. That's not what I want to do. I wish that message got out there more, and hopefully moving forward, I'll be able to help that happen. I think every mom thinks I'm going to have the magic bullet. I'm going to be the one that stops this. I'm going to break the cycle. Certainly was me. And my daughter was 11 when I got her out. I was 12 when my mom got me out. And my daughter had my current husband, who's amazing, and a picture of a really healthy relationship. So I thought she got the healthy relationship almost as long as she got the unhappy relationship. And now she's old enough to translate what the difference is. And I really thought that she wasn't going to fall down that trap. It's heartbreaking when you see that happen and how indelible that is at such a young age.
What was your very first job, and how do you think it shaped you?
My very first job was off the record. My friend's parents owned a movie theater, and we did the aisle cleanup and serve the popcorn and those kinds of things. And I wouldn't say that that one had a tremendous impact on me. The real on-the-record job where I actually got a paycheck and the government took taxes, I was a cashier at Walgreens. One of my really good friends to this day was a kind of regional bigwig at Walgreens. And I was like, that was my first job. And that was fun. I learned a lot of things about people, the people that would come in with the ads that were like, but it says 3 cans of cat food for $1.99. There's only 2 on the shelves. What I would do to bend over to try to figure out, how do I get this person a 3rd can of cat food? I certainly learned discipline, and I learned that work ethic mattered. I was 16 years old and in high school, but I learned who got scheduled and who didn't, and what that was based on how they showed up and what they did when they showed up and who they were when they showed up. And I think I probably learned that from my parents too. Work ethic is a thing that has always been huge for me, and that I quite frankly struggle with in other people sometimes.
Yeah, our expectations of others.
Well, and our expectations of ourselves. I think that's what drives our expectations of others. Maybe over the years I've learned that I can't necessarily have the same expectations of others that I do of myself, which is a tough lesson to learn.
What are some of the most rewarding moments while leading the Tampa Bay Business Journal and Tampa Bay Business and Wealth?
I was with the Business Journal organization for 8.5 years in Jacksonville before I moved to Tampa. And it was my first management job over there. And I was the director of advertising and had a team of about 10 people and had a really amazing run, and then got promoted here and ran as president and publisher for just shy of 11 years. I think the people that I'm still in touch with still will say, you're the best boss I ever had. There's a couple of people in Tampa in particular that are some of my best friends that worked for me that both actually left basically because they became moms, and I couldn't fault them for that. And it was the thing that I did that mattered the most to me. We had mom conversations, and their rendition of it is very funny. Someday you'll have to ask Alyssa in particular what I said when she told me she was pregnant with a girl. girl because I had a teenage girl at the time and I was like, good luck. But her and Erica is still two of my best friends. There's still people who I'm in touch with who worked for me
That was terrific.
20, 30 years ago, and just really amazing relationships, growing up together and learning together. Both staffs, from a sales perspective and an editorial perspective, won tons of awards, and that's something I'm really proud of. The growth in both organizations that I got to lead and the people that I got to have in my arms at the same time and bring with me. And then what they went on to do, Alyssa went on to start her own business. Erica went on to be chief business development officer. Just being a part of those careers, there's several people in the Business Journal organization that I hired. One went on to be a president and publisher of her own market. And so just really being a part of people's professional careers, we're still in touch.
Are there any misconceptions about women in the publishing world, magazines and print?
Did you watch The Devil Wears Prada? One of my all-time favorite movies. But she was portrayed as quite the bitch. She was a shrewd businesswoman. She was a very tough businesswoman. People automatically make assumptions about you. One of my dearest friends tells a story of he worked in the same building as me when I first got the promotion to run the Business Journal. And the best part of the story is you would get in the elevator and you'd have all these assistants around you and you didn't smile. And meanwhile, in my 20-year career with the Business Journal, I never had one assistant. Never had one. But his perception was that I was surrounded by his assistants and that I didn't smile and that somebody was doing my hair and somebody was doing my lipstick. And I think that people make assumptions about, not just in the publishing world, about women in power that they would never make about a man in that same position. It's really not fair. I'm not intimidating. I'm not a bitch. I'm none of those things. But I didn't get a chance to show a lot of people who I really was because they made those assumptions about me based on my title.
You're quite the connector.
That's my favorite part of my job.
I have seen you over the years connect people. Incredible.
Thank you.
Is that something you've just learned over time, or were you very intentional about that?
I would love to say that I was intentional about it. It would make me sound smart and strategic. No, I am authentic to a fault. I trust people to a fault. I am who I am to a fault. And when somebody says, I need this, or I was thinking about this, or I wish I knew somebody, A, really good at storing enough information to know whether you're the person for that job, and B, trust people enough until they give me a reason not to think, well, why wouldn't I help those two people? I've never once made an introduction that I didn't put my head on the pillow at night and think, I help them. So no, it wasn't strategic. It will be a part of my story moving forward. I can promise you that.
Definitely have a gift for it.
Thank you. I feel really good about the introductions. People say to me, every single person that you have introduced me to has been just a genuinely good person. There's no greater compliment than to expand somebody's friendship group, business group, or whatever by adding really authentic and amazing people.
What lessons about family and relationships would you pass along to the younger generation?
I've been reflecting on how did I get where I am now. And I trust people to a fault until they give me a reason not to. And that has included my teams and the people that worked for me in the past. Because I'm always the girl that says, oh, he doesn't work for me. We work together. He works with me. Unfortunately, that has bit me in the butt more than once. And I was talking to a person before I came here and I said, I really don't want to lose that about myself because I think it's a big part of who I am, but I'm rethinking that strategy. This hasn't worked out so good for me a couple of times. And she said, please don't lose that about yourself. And so from a lesson perspective, I need to learn how to trust people until they give me a reason not to, but also not to pour my whole self in. And that's probably so counterintuitive to what you would have expected me to say, but I can't have the same expectations of everyone else that I have of myself. And oftentimes I get let down. And when it comes to trust and integrity and doing the right thing and being that person, I've been let down several times.
Someone once said to me, trust but verify.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And as a business person, that is something, especially when you're at the top, that you have to carry with you.
Yeah, but how do you do that and be your authentic self? I don't know. Stay tuned because I don't know how to be any other way. I'm not old, I'm experienced. I'm proud of who I am and I'm proud of who my friend group is and I'm proud of what I've accomplished to this point. And I think all of that relies on things like trusting people and connecting people and being my authentic self, and you knowing that you're going to get me no matter what the circumstances or no matter who the crowd is, or whether I have a job or don't have a job. I just am who I am.
Well, I have a feeling that you are going to rise from this.
I promise you I'm going to rise from this. Yes. Thank you.
If you could give advice to someone who might be just starting out a career in media or journalism, publishing, what kind of advice would you give them?
I give this advice no matter who I'm speaking to and no matter what the industry is. It's always been about relationships and reputation. And I think those two things are the ultimate currency. I really think that people's reputation and relationships are the most important thing, particularly as it relates to trust. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I've never made a mistake. It just means that we kind of know that we can count on each other to be our authentic selves and to be the person that we present ourselves to be. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that drives everything else. And that's something I'll never compromise on. My relationships and my reputation are everything to me.
And you had a terrific run in radio for a while, too, when you were younger.
Yes. I was on the air for a couple of years when I was in college. My husband's favorite part of that story is that my on-air name was Heather Fox because no one used their real names in radio back then. Well, no, because there were like stalkers. There were people that were like super obsessed with radio DJs. And if you used your real name, they would figure out where you lived and who you were. And I had to have a pseudonym on air. But I spent the first 10 years of my career in radio, a couple of them on the on-air side. The guy who to this day is probably the only single station owner in the entire country that's left because they're all conglomerates, came in and pulled me out of the broadcast booth one day and I thought I was getting fired. I'm not a morning person and it was a 4:30 a.m. start to the shift and I was always late. And I was like, I'll do better. I'm sorry. He saw something in me that forever changed my trajectory from a career perspective and a personal perspective. And he said, I think you're great on the air. And took me to the parking lot and he pointed at a Pinto, which they used to explode on impact. That's what they were known for. And he said, that's what my highest paid on-air talent drives. And he pointed at a BMW at the other end of the parking lot. And he said, that's what my highest paid salesperson drives. What kind of car do you want to drive?
Oh.
I was like, duh, I want to drive the BMW. So I ended up on the business side of things with my roots from going to college to study journalism and be a journalist. And I got the best of both worlds. And that carried me through my career and was the best part of the experience, honestly. People told me when I launched TBBW in 2018, has no one told you Prince dead? What are you doing? They thought I was crazy. And I think what it has proven across multiple different ways is that we love to communicate and we love to hear about the human experience and we love to learn about things that we don't already know about. We love to hear other people's stories. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's ever going away. In the past month and a half with no staff for the first time in 35 years of my life, me and Chat have become friends. You keep hearing that, AI is going to replace journalists and it's going to replace radio personalities. I left radio in 1999. They were telling us back then, board operators are not going to be a thing. And maybe they're not, but DJs are still a thing. Right. You can't replicate that human connection. You can't replicate that relationship that people feel like they have with a writer, with a DJ, with somebody who is a communicator. And I think it's really interesting to see, particularly graduated from college in 1993. They told us back then print was dead. I started a print publication in 2018 that's still doing very well. Clearly, print's not dead. Clearly, radio is not dead. Yeah. It just evolves. And as long as we continue to evolve as humans and as communicators, I think there will always be a place for that nothing can replace.
We talked about some pivotal moments.
I actually got diagnosed with breast cancer in June of 17 and Irma hit in September. I'm a Pinellas County resident and Morton Plant's always been where I get my mammograms done. And I send you and Brianna a picture every year of the room that is dedicated to you so that you know that I'm still getting my mammograms. I had gone and done my traditional mammogram and they had said something's not right and we'd like for you to go get a diagnostic and an ultrasound and all these things. And I went into that like I go into everything. It's going to be fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And I remember where I was sitting when I got the phone call and another person that we know and love, Rhea Law, I was going to an event at her house that night. And I was driving around South Tampa in circles. I had called my mom. I had called my husband. And I was like, I have this event I'm supposed to go to tonight. And I don't think I want to go. And They were like, what's the event? Who is it? And I said, it's Colleen Chapel and Rhea Law and female CEOs from the region. Colleen, of course, has shared her breast cancer journey. And both my mom and my husband said, that's exactly where you need to be. You need to go there. That's absolutely what you have to do. It was June 18th of 2017. They still hear from me every year because it was exactly where I needed to be. My surgery was in July. Morton Plant was a big part of my story. Susan Cheek Needler is still where I go every year. And I always say the months that I was waiting until I got there for them to say, have a seat, you'll know what's going on before you leave today. That's priceless. You don't get that most places, just the things that go through your mind. And, oh my God, I'm going to die. The surgeon was amazing. Kate Allen was my surgeon. The radiation journey. I just can't say enough about the team. And I've tried really hard ever since 2017 to make sure that people understand just how amazing you guys were. You were one of my first phone calls and you made sure that I could be seen immediately. And I'll say this, everyone that I have sent since then gets the same treatment. It wasn't because I was Bridgette Bello, it was because of you. So thank you for that.
Well, we have an amazing community.
We do have an amazing community.
I'm glad you're doing well. And Irma, you got hit twice, Irma and the last hurricane.
Yeah, I have to clarify. A lot of people said, oh my God, this has happened to you twice. Like, why are you staying? Why are you going through this again? They were two completely different events. Irma was supposed to be a water element. If you remember, everyone was talking about flood and lift your furniture and lift everything. And my husband and I lifted as much as we could up on tables and beds. Irma wasn't a water event. It wasn't a flood event. And all we did was move all of our stuff closer to the roof where the water came in. It ripped our roof off. It was spawned by a hurricane, but it was actually what they refer to as a microburst. Irma wasn't a thing for most people, and the experience was completely different for us because we were the only single-family home in Pinellas County that was lost in that storm. Helene took, as my husband likes to say, 90%, and Milton took the other 10% from us. It's almost 2 years ago. We are back in our house. I will tell you that we spend our weekends still sifting through bins that were packed by amazing people from everywhere that came to help us.
What do you think is a secret to a happy and fulfilling life?
Well, I have my first grandchild. Everyone calls me B, and my initials are BB, and I'm not going to be Mimi or Gigi because everybody else is. So what's different? I'm going to be BB.
It's cute.
And she has all the bumblebee things, and so we talk about BB all the time. She hasn't said it yet. She is saying Mama and Dada, but she has not said BB yet. Legacy has become more important to me than maybe I ever knew that it would. My daughter never expressed any interest in following the path that I had been on, and I partially didn't want her to. I wanted her to do her own thing, and we didn't know what that was going to be, and she's found her own thing that she's really, really good at. But that doesn't mean that I don't still hope that I create something that she wants to be a part of and that ultimately my granddaughter Iris wants to be a part of. And so that's what I'm really working on. I was a single mom for several years, and I'd love to say, don't blink in how quickly they grow up. I keep telling her, like, you're going to blink and Iris is going to be 30. Right. Hold on to every minute. But at the same time, I'm consuming information that's like, I'm not the only grandma that has realized I need to really pause and pay attention because if I don't, I'm going to blink and Iris is going to be 30. I think it's the whole stop and smell the roses, take the pictures, take the trip, all those things. I have poured myself heart and soul and blood, sweat and tears into two different companies that ultimately aren't my granddaughter and my daughter and my husband and my family and really what's going to matter to me. Nothing else matters to me. I think I've learned that lesson the hard way at least twice.
Yeah, that makes sense. At this point, what's keeping you motivated and inspired? Because you've had some difficult times.
There's a part of me that wants to say what keeps me going is wanting the people who did me wrong to see me be successful. There's a larger part of me who has rebuilt my house twice in the last 8 years, and that's not free. And for anyone who thinks insurance covers it, you're wrong. There's a part of me, again, that is facing this reality of I have a grandchild and a child, and I want to leave something meaningful for them. That really is the nucleus. But I also think and genuinely believe that I have something to give. And the number of people who have said to me, whatever you do next, it has to continue to include uplifting women because that's a part of your brand. And that's true. And there's probably nothing I've worked harder at. And so I can't abandon that at this point. And the reality is we still need it. And that's unfortunate. We're still not 50% of corporate boards. We're still asked, why do you do a women's awards program and you don't do a men's awards program? Well, until we're 50% of boards, we're going to keep doing that. My breast cancer journey has value. I think that my domestic violence journey has value. People have said, why have you always been so focused on Tampa Bay? Your story could change lives nationally. And that's terrifying. Like, it's safe here. I know people here, and I have a great reputation and great relationships. Stretching is not a bad idea, and getting out of our comfort zone is not a bad idea. And I've had a couple of iterations of trying to grow outside of this market, and I think it's really time for me to do that. Lots of things keep me motivated. Yeah. Having the opportunity to spend more time with my daughter and my granddaughter and to be that amazing BB that I want to be is a big part of it, but also continuing the legacy and the things that people expect of me.
You know, I've been involved in the philanthropic space for quite a number of years, and philanthropy means different things to different people. What does philanthropy mean to you?
Philanthropy, to me, it means leaving this world a better place than where we found it. And that, through all the different generations of my life and my career, has meant different things. When I didn't have money, I gave my time. And when I did have money, I gave money and my time. And when I had the vehicle to be able to uplift all of these amazing nonprofits that we have in this community, I gave my time, talent, and treasure. And it doesn't come from a place where people did that for me necessarily, because people didn't know until I started telling my story. There definitely was a women's shelter when I was a child that's back in Austin, Texas, that helped my mom. When I needed a women's shelter, quote unquote, I didn't need a women's shelter. I was the breadwinner and I was able to take care of myself and my daughter. The American Cancer Society was certainly there for me through my cancer journey, and Morton Plant Meese was certainly there for me through that journey. But I've just never been the person that needed food stamps or rides to treatment. When they first started talking about that there's people who don't go to their chemotherapy treatment because they don't have a way to get there, that never even crossed my mind. I had people fighting over, no, it's my turn to take her. No, it's my turn to take her. So it doesn't come from a place of need. It comes from a place of, I have a responsibility, whether it's been luck, whether it's been hard work, whether it's been being goal-oriented, whatever we want to call it. I have a story that can change people's lives. I have a voice and a platform that can change people's lives. And so I really think it's just, how do we leave this world better than we found it? How do we make a difference, even sometimes for one person? One of my favorite stories is the starfish. It's a story about two people walking down the beach, and one of the people picking up the starfish that was stranded on the beach and throwing it back in the water, and the other person saying, there's thousands of them for miles and miles and miles and miles. You're never going to be able to save all the starfish. And the person said, but I saved that one. And the number of people who have come up to me after I've spoken or after I've told my story and cried and said, oh my God, you just told my story, or oh my God, I would have never thought that happened to you. I go from being the Devil Wears Prada that has assistants buzzing all over her in the elevator and people are afraid to talk to saying, this is what happened to me or happened for me, which is my new way of trying to describe it. And I think it happened for me because I have a big voice and I have a big platform, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. Judge me if you want to. I didn't do it. I'm not the victim. I'm not the perpetrator. I'm the person that it happened for.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you for sitting down with me today.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
Thanks for listening to Bon Vivant Chic, Life Well Lived. I hope you'll tune in for more meaningful stories on the human experience and share with family and friends. A special shout out to Will Cooper out of Nashville, Tennessee, for creating this season's music. All the episodes are available wherever you listen to podcasts, including my website, bonvivantchic.com. Till next time, remember, every day is a gift. Live it with kindness.